Welcome to the Modern Couples podcast, Love, Purpose, Growth. I am Marcella Brebaum, relationship coach, founder of Modern Couples, and fitness and biohacking enthusiast. My TEDx talk and Modern Couples Summit has inspired thousands of people to invest into their relationship skills. Over the past years, I worked with entrepreneurs, ambitious leaders, power couples, and high performers to 10x their love. In this podcast, each episode brings you pioneering strategies and raw conversations to support you navigate the complexities of future fit relating. If you're ready to 10x your love life, let's connect. Because when your relationship thrives, your whole life expands. Links to my current offers are in the show notes. Now, listen up, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Let's dive into today's episode. Yes, let's take a breath together. Deep in through the nose and out through the mouth. Welcome, Victoria. Hello.
Hello.
Good to have you here in my studio for our talk. And I would like to introduce you briefly to the audience. And I like to do the introduction the way I got to meet you. We got to meet around 6 weeks ago. And it really feels like a coincidence because I actually went to a workshop of a topic and theme I had never heard about, but a person that I knew, Mariom, was performing there. And I thought, you know what, it's somewhat related to what I do. I'm going to go. And I registered with you and I knew nothing about you and what you do. And then I came into this workshop somewhat with a curious mind. And I was blown away by the topic of conscious conception. But even more so, what really touched me was your voice and how you introduced Stuart, how you held the space. I am someone who is very sensitive to space holding. Who are the people that are really holding sacred space for intimate topics to come up, for sharings that have to do with relationship, with birth, with sexuality, with intimacy, with some of the most sacred and some of the most unspoken topics. And over the course, I got to learn that you support couples and individuals on their journey of conscious conception. And for me, I feel so honored to now have you closer in my life. You moved here and we got to share some time together. I got to meet some part of your family as well. And I really feel so grateful to have you here today and talk about, conscious conception, birth, the way we birth children into this world. And with that, I would like to give it to you to introduce yourself with what's your mission in this world, because the topic that I just briefly touched upon, it comes from a deep initiation, maybe multiple. So, who are you from your words and what's your mission in life?
Oh.
The stage is yours.
Wow. Well, I can't go any further without really saying thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. And since the moment we met in the most enriching space. And I'm honored to be here. We're talking about, couples. And in my view, this is one of the most important conversations of our time. Everything that you just mentioned, sexuality, conception, pregnancy, birth, relationships, all of those things are sacred. And we can talk about any one of those topics, and inevitably they'll bring us into the core of who we are. And that is something that I deeply, deeply acknowledge with everyone that I cross paths with. And I think that it is a very deeply, tragically forgotten part of our existence. We were all born and we were all conceived, and all of the energy that surrounded our conceptions and our life before birth, and then our births and on, really inform who we are and how we are in the world. world, how we are in relationships. So, yeah, just to say, I believe that we have an extraordinary opportunity to really protect the sacred. And the way that we do that is we remember who we are, what we're made of, where we originated, and that we are all sacred. So I really think that, yeah, the magic, the sacredness has, in a lot of ways, been extracted from conception, from pregnancy, and from birth. And we have multiple multi-billion-dollar industries that show that to be true. And therefore, the work that we're doing, just by having these kinds of conversations, are so, so, so essential. So, yeah, thank you. I'm honored. There's nothing more I'd rather talk about. Yeah, you're right. Many initiations, those initiations continue. But to just point a few, at 21 years old, I had a near-death experience. And yeah, what easily could have been a fatal car crash was what I really do consider a supreme opportunity to make two very important choices. One was whether or not to live. That was very easy for me. And the second was, yeah, what path would I embark upon? And two pathways really revealed to me in a very visual, vivid, lucid way. And I chose the path of becoming fully alive, inhabiting my flesh, incarnating. And that, when I really reflect on it now, was a choice of embodying the mystery of life, letting go of the need to know, restoring my instinct. And that's exactly what happened from there. I was intuitively guided at a very early age into the Amazon jungle of Peru. I could have not known what was waiting for me there. I can tell you right now that ayahuasca was not the drink of choice in college. I was the number one party animal, actually. I had no peers with me on that journey. We'll just say that. So that was really a self-directed, instinctual calling that I responded to after graduating from college. I really didn't know that I was going to discover what I would now consider to be a real hospital in the Amazon. I got to meet who I would now consider some of the original custodians of health, real doctors and pharmacists that have an unforgotten understanding of the origins of health and the origins of disease. Ayahuasca is a very tiny, tiny part of this very ancient healing tradition that spans thousands of years. It's just the only part that we hear about in the West. So over the course of many years, I spent extensive periods of time learning, working, and apprenticing. But during that time, I witnessed many, 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 many other Westerners like myself go into this ancient indigenous healing tradition, and I picked up on a few things. One of the main things that I picked up on was that inevitably we are all re-experiencing our own births, whether we're aware of it or not, every day of our lives. And this is exaggerated when you sit with a medicine like particularly ayahuasca. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. I've given keynotes on that. I think I'm kind of pioneering a lot of theories in that sector. That could be a whole other conversation. But it's just to say that we produce high amounts of DMT at the time of our births and at the time of our deaths. And so through my lens, I would say that actually ayahuasca is inherent within us. And she just might be a manifestation of nature that embodies our life force, wisdom, fertility, kundalini, the Ma energy. There's many names that it goes by, right? So there's something interesting, and then I'll kind of let you take it from here. But one of the things I really got to witness up front through my own experiential personal journeys there, but also witnessing over the years thousands of people inside and outside of that tradition go through transformative healing experiences, is that we have a cultural wound of separation. And our wound of separation is long before birth, now especially. In indigenous traditions, and I could just speak from my own experience, I would say that, yeah, when I talk to the women in the village where I was living and spending time in the Amazon, and I tell them what it is we're doing, how we're welcoming our people into their lives, they cannot understand why on earth we would do things like ever even consider separating a mother and a baby at or anywhere near birth, especially if the baby wasn't thriving. Mm-hmm. So that's just one little example of, yeah, we're separating our people from their source at the immediacy upon arrival. And now we are wondering, why are we out of relationship with ourselves, with each other, with Mother Earth, and with power, with all of it, you know? So yeah, this is it's an interesting conversation. I corrected myself at a particular keynote that I delivered a couple of years ago for the European Transpersonal Association, where I was talking about this, the incredible importance of healing our own births in preparation to sit with a powerful medicine like ayahuasca, and certainly how essential that is for us to integrate and incarnate the wisdom and the healing that is unlocked in such a ceremony. In order for that wisdom that a medicine like Aya unlocks in us to really organize inside of our systems correctly, you know, and to not be misused or to not amplify the ego and things like this. So it's something I speak of a lot. But in that keynote, I actually corrected myself and said, like, actually, our wound of separation begins long before birth. I see it all the time in my profession because I love and support women and couples through the journey of pregnancy and often leading up to pregnancy, so preconception, which we'll get into. And yeah, we have women outsourcing their power, their innate knowing, their wisdom to external authorities to somehow find out what is best for them and their body and their baby, rather than being self-resourced and having their instinct intact to really be supported in making direct contact with their body and their baby to gather accurate information about their well-being. Mm. So yeah, if we don't trust humans from the time that they are, from the very inception of their lives, they are not going to grow trusting themselves. Okay, so sounds like very revolutionary, but my work is very basic. It's to say, if we want to cultivate human beings that are highly esteemed, confident, self-directed, sovereign, believe in themselves, don't question, have a gift to discern what's theirs and what's not theirs, and all these things. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if these were the people running countries and nations and making important decisions in our world? Then the concept behind luminous birth is when we relate to conception and pregnancy and birth, procreation, respectfully, then we allow consciousness to remain intact from the very beginning of life. We must trust our babies. We must know that they are the experts. We were the experts in our lives from the very beginning. And we have 5-6 generations of really harmful indoctrination that stems from the industrialized birth complex that taught us that babies are not conscious. They won't remember, they don't feel pain. We still do very harmful procedures on babies at birth without the use of anesthesia, and that is testimony to that. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Since I was a young child, I've had this very natural gift to be able to communicate with babies, both born and unborn, and even preconceived. And it's very obvious to me that they're way more conscious than we are, no matter how many ceremonies we've done, you know. So our purpose is to, I believe, what does it mean to cultivate a human being? I think it's 100% an inside job. Mm-hmm. I think we're stepping out of this old paradigm of raising kids, parenting. This, you know, I think that's a cultural thing. And if you look outside of our culture, they have more respect for their children, and they have more trust in their children than we do. And so, I think that cultivating the human being is really an inside job, and by restoring our own original blueprint, we can talk about that when it comes to preconception and conception. We have this amazing opportunity to maximize the potential of humanity. We have this incredible opportunity to actually midwife the genius into the world. Things like everything I mentioned: confidence, esteem, capacity to communicate, process information, all these things, they're not developmental. These are innate. Forgetting, low self-esteem, all these things, these are developmental. These are developmental. But the genius of the human being is innate. So, if all goes well, luminous birth actually it really puts an end to the need for things like a lot of therapeutic modalities we use today, including some of these very breakthrough ceremonial methods that are really a supreme blessing. But I believe that these medicines, these very sacred medicines, are showing up in a time because we need them. We have forgotten our interconnectedness and our innate wisdom.
That was very rich. I love the energy behind your mission. I could see my brain wander back to school time and thinking about mathematics class, or like some of the classes where, you know, we would do something on the surface, but actually then the question was always, but why, or why, and what's the root of that, and what's the root of that? And so to say, when we look at an iceberg and, you know, we only see the top of it, we don't see what's underneath, which is way bigger. And usually when a person picks up the phone to call a therapist or a coach, it's because of some surface topic that they want to change, transform. But actually, if you go to the root, like to the very root of who you are and why things appear as they appear in your life, I feel like it's so obvious to go back to, you know, the conception and even seeing the energies and frequencies beforehand. But it's like, it's too simple to see. And so we stay on top, like on the surface level. Because like even for me, it was an eye-opening moment when I sat there and I was like, it makes so much sense. It makes so much, how come I was blind to this? How come I, you know, like, I already advocate the theory that most of us, like 99% of us, are walking around with somewhat of a broken heart on some level. And that is what guides our patterns in our day-to-day life, because we on our individual level are not equipped. Well, we actually would be, but let's say the world as it is, we lack the time, the resources, the connection with our own innate gifts to actually take care of our hearts. So we have people ruling countries, we have people ruling companies, leading companies we have people, you know, everywhere, and on some level they have had a heartbreak, be it in a love relationship, be it with a parent, be it with a friend. Like everywhere is somewhat of a broken heart. But to take it back to the moment of like, well, what happened at birth? You know, how connected were you with your mom, with your parents in that moment? How connected was your mom with you when she was pregnant? How connected was your father with you in that moment? Like all of that. And then I think for me, and thank you for bringing in plant medicine to this journey. For me, I think it was 4 years ago, my very first ceremony. It was one of the lessons I got out of there, which was everything is frequency. And in the sense, you know, my thought, my being, what I radiate shapes the conversation, shapes the connection. So to say, also shapes the eggs that I carry, that or the sperm that we have. And to understand that on such a subtle level, I really, that was something meaningful for me in the sense of like, hey, I'm already now putting energy into my womb that will birth children. And therefore, you know, it's important for me to connect with my womb and make sure the frequency is what I want to see in the future. Because very often we lack this. Well, I feel we are somewhat the generation that is called to be in the now, but also understand that what we do now will build the future, and not just how to navigate the crisis on what we see right now as the crisis, but really as in what you described. Like, I need to make the choice to actually create a different line for my daughters and sons to come right now, not when they are there. Like, every moment is the perfect moment, but I can start now already for what I want to see in the future. And when we look at healing generational trauma, we are very often just looking into the path and how can I not be like my dad, like my mom, but to actually go from there, like, what do I want instead? It feels so empowering and so important. So, yeah. I'm curious if there's a person who does not yet speak with plant medicine or feels a little bit insecure around that. Is there a path to experience a similar connection or without ayahuasca? A short interruption to tell you the exciting news of the launch of our new signature program, Love 10X. Ooh, I cannot wait to share more about it. It's designed for ambitious individuals, high performers, entrepreneurs, leaders, purpose-driven singles who want to rewire their brain to 10x their love. You have mastered your business, your career, you are into personal development. But when it comes to love and relating, it just still feels like a risky investment where you don't know how to protect your energy. However, deep down, you feel it's time to find your life partner. It's time for that crack your heart wide open love. So, if you are ready for a conscious, deeply fulfilling approach to love, if you want to upgrade your relationship life, check the show notes and join Love 10X. Is there a path to connect with my birth story without ayahuasca?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really beautiful question, and I'm so glad that you asked. That's the work that I do, and in a lot of ways, I think that the pathway of revisiting your own birth, pre-birth, conception, and preconception experiences can be a lot more powerful. And it's not to say one or the other is better or less than or anything, but it can be more powerful than sitting with a medicine like ayahuasca. If we consider that ayahuasca is here to help us restore our interconnected nature, it's here to help us to restore our oneness, our sense of connectedness and belonging and oneness with all of life, with all of nature. The reality is that had we all have been welcomed into our lives from the time of preconception the way we all needed to be and innately deserved to be, softly, lovingly, respectfully, if our births were the celebration of love that nature intended our births to be, then we wouldn't likely be spending all the time, money, and energy of our lives, like our generation is, trying to remember who we are and why we came. I've worked with a lot of people who have done extensive personal development and work on themselves, who are really invested in their own ongoing growth, learning, healing. And the work that helps them to integrate all of that is the work of revisiting their own birth. So we overcomplicate that. As soon as someone says, oh, revisit my own birth, well, I don't remember my birth. That's the number one thing that comes up, right? Mm-hmm. Perhaps those stories were never told to you, or you only know what was told to you. Perhaps your parents aren't still living in their bodies and you can't even have those conversations with your parents. So I specialize in pre and perinatal memory. And so my skill set and my training through pre and perinatal psychology and all the apprenticeships that I've done with some of my elders. Before all of that came, I didn't mention, but I do have some of my own birth and pre-birth memories intact. My mother was very supportive in helping me to integrate some of my in utero things as I grew older as a child. So I have that, which was a huge, which deeply informed probably my trajectory now. But yeah, it's important to know that memory is not what we remember. It's more accurately what we don't remember. Remembering is a cognitive function, right? So you're using your prefrontal cortex to remember what you had for dinner yesterday. Or you're using your thinking brain, your more rapid brainwave states to remember. This is a thinking thing. And we also tend to associate what we remember with what we can put words to. If I can't tell you, then there's no way I can remember. But right out of the gate, I would say these memories are coming from a pre-verbal time. So our prenatal memories, our memories from before birth, they're almost never expressed with words. They're expressed in behaviors. I would say that our memory is largely the way in which we are experiencing the world. And more than that, the way in which we are interpreting our experiences. So I heard someone say one time that all parenting happens in utero. After that, it's over. It moved me when I heard that, and it should move us, because for all these years we've treated pregnancy like it's somehow just a waiting period, right? And we forget that we're the actual architects of a human being. We were set up in the womb, and our digestive system, our circulatory system, our endocrine system, our everything, our nervous system, and what informed that development? It was all the energy that surrounded us. It was the thoughts and the beliefs that were held predominantly by our parents that informed our development. I can break that down but into some more scientific terms, but I think that we can all agree that we have these amazing neurochemical messengers and hormones that, pass through the placental fetal membrane, and ultimately that is the information that informs development. It isn't what we once thought. It's not like, once your ear auricular part of your anatomy is developed, then you start hearing. No, consciousness is more broad than that. It's like we're multi-sensory beings. We're taking in everything. So, coming back down to memory and how do we get in contact with the memories? I guide it through the way I was taught to guide it in a safe way, through a meditative way. So we go through, it's a multiple part journey where I implement techniques to get folks out of the thinking brain. And I'm really echoing over and over, whatever you do, don't try to remember. Let go of all of that. Your only responsibility, your only role through this journey is to pay attention and notice what you're noticing about your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations as we go through this journey. So we gather information by me guiding you back in a very detailed way through your birth, pre-birth, so all 3 trimesters going backward in time, then revisiting your conception and preconception, and you are not thinking about it. When I would be prompting the person to then write or draw what it is that is coming up for them. Why do we write and draw and not speak? Because writing and drawing is using a totally different brainwave state. It's using a more alpha brainwave state, which is slower. This is the part of our brainwaves that are associated with feeling, with memory, with sensation. When you're talking, you automatically stimulate the prefrontal cortex, and now you're in the thinking brain, and that is just not where our memory resides. So this is a very gentle, grounded experience. It's very different than, say, Stanislav Grof's work, who developed holotropic breath work. There's all kinds of techniques that have been developed over the years similar to that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think that as a culture, we need a lot more support to do exactly what you said, which is, you said it without saying it, which is to write a new story. So as we unlock our imprints are the beliefs that we developed based on our environment and what we were exposed to, especially the feelings and the needs of our mothers while we were growing. And here's where it gets interesting. Our imprints inform our beliefs. Our beliefs inform our values. And our values inform our decision-making. So yeah, in preparation for birth, especially, I would say, healing your own birth is the most important part of birth preparation that's almost always overlooked. But yeah, the rewriting is the most important part. So we gather information about what happened or what didn't happen, not for the purpose of marinating in that, but for the purpose of becoming aware of how is this story continuing. We're all telling our stories. Every day of our lives, we are retelling our stories. Now, this work gives us this amazing opportunity to become a real author of the story. Mm-hmm. So when we illuminate the imprints, we restore the original blueprint. And the blueprint is what I would be, that's our wholeness, that's our true essence. And I would be really interested in speaking with you about that, because that brings us into procreation, love making, our design, our original design.
Yeah. I have one question that, as you were describing, like all the factors that shape the frequency around conception and around my consciousness. From your point of view, this could be very personal, but I'm curious, what role does astrology play in that? Right. So people that work with me, they know that I will also ask them for their time of birth, of place, the hour. It's one of the first moments where I connect with their birth story, because I do think that story matters. It's also nice for me to hear how they were birthed. But then I look into their human design chart, because for me, it has become one of the most easy, accessible tools to explain compatibility and relationship struggles that we have in relationships, that we have with one another. And the idea is that at the moment of birth, how the planets were, how the constellation of the planets were at that time impacts every cell of the child. There's something called neutrinos flow, where we say this is like the tiniest particles that absorb energy from a planet and also, bring it to the child. And that is where gifts, talents, challenges, shadows, all of that can find their root. And then we go 3 months before and say, 3 months before birth, how were the planets there? And this shapes somewhat of their body, their innate wisdom, right? Like that is where your bodily wisdom was formed, and it's the subconscious part. And I am a huge fan of, bringing many things together and seeing, how it's all related and how it all connects. And sometimes I feel like, even in science, we are somewhat, looking at numbers on that level and missing out. Like I'm so curious how AI will gonna, really crunch those numbers underneath of like, my parents' design, the mine design, and sometimes even for me a curiosity of the clients that come to me. Can I look into their designs and see how we actually logically make sense to connect? But going back, like that's my craziness where I really love to bring somewhat of the astrology and the scientific and my own inner wisdom together, and feel like there's so many aspects we don't even look for in science or in our knowledge. But what is your take on astrology also influencing? That can be a quick one, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, we'll keep it quick. But absolutely. I will say that they have managed to get imagery of conception. And the conception looks identical to the birth of a nebula. So yeah, what you tap me into there is I'm not an expert on astrology. I fully believe in astrology. I turn to astrology a lot. I know people who are specializing in astrology, particularly for the souls that are incarnating on Earth, and I just think, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm so enthralled by it. But what you really just remind me, and may we all remember, that conception, pregnancy, birth, creation, it is magic, right?
Yes.
So let us back up and stop trying to change and manipulate and control. Let us turn, like, if ever you walk into a vicinity of birth, if you're ever so blessed to witness birth and you hear a ticking clock in that room, take it off the wall and get it out. There's no room for timing things in this magical realm that birth, conception, all of it lies in, right? The Tibetans were, I think, the original masters in understanding how consciousness enters form and how it leaves form, right? Birth and death. And now we have however many decades of brilliant research in embryology. And no matter what, we still don't know. Conception is impossible. It is an absolute miracle. Anything else enters the uterus the way a fertilized ovum does, and it will be fought out like a foreign agent. There's not going to stand a chance. So it's a miracle, right? People can try to get pregnant for months and months, and yeah, there's a whole industry, again, multiple industries making big, big, big bank on us having this need to know and have things on our timeline. And then due dates, that's a whole other thing. There is no such thing. And that whole notion is causing a lot of unnecessary violence and medicalization of human life. It doesn't exist. Babies come when they're ready, and we don't know why or when or how. And it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be just as magical as the conception, right? So yeah, somehow this star needs to be right there, and that star needs to be there, and Pluto needs to be in this angle, and the moon is in this phase. And then all of a sudden, by the grace of the divine, the baby initiates their life on planet Earth. And I believe that we are all meant to be the initiators of our lives on planet Earth. And it's not meant to be influenced by anything or anyone outside of us. We have to keep that magic intact. And Yeah, the Human Design, Richard Rudd of the Gene Keys. These are brilliant, genius bodies of work that all support that. Yeah, we have an innate genius, and we have a unique constitution, and there is all this emerging work in constellations, that's coming in. And yeah, we're all unique stars. We come from stardust.
I hope you are fully enjoying this episode. I get asked often why to invest in your relationship skills. And I want to share with you 12 scientifically proven benefits of being in a modern couples relationship. Now, did you know that modern couples, hence couples who are in love, do the work that is needed to fully thrive stronger together, are measurably happier, live longer, make more money, are physically healthier, have more sex, have improved mental health, recover faster from illness, cope better with life's problems, travel more, have fewer addictions, and inspire others to greatness? Last but not least, modern couples, those that support each other and sculpture each other into the greatest version of themselves, ultimately make a bigger impact in their family system, in their community, in their businesses, in the way they show up in life. Imagine this was the normal way of how couples around you and within you radiate. If you are an ambitious human aiming for the 12 and more benefits, I'm here to support you to rewire your brain for the 10x kind of love. All information are in the show notes. Now, let's continue the episode. Sometimes it's really, I will say through the journey of plant medicine, my perspective has definitely changed and has become wider on seeing the bigger impact of things and how it's all interrelated. And sometimes I feel it's really a matter of, do I have the freedom, and that can be limited by money, by time, by health, by the knowledge that I have access through my relationships. There can be lack of freedom. If I don't have that, I might not be able to hear these information and to actually sit down and feel what really resonates. But if I open up to the idea that the way our society is formed is really very much human-made, it's like the best of the answers that we have at this time and place, the idea of like, how can we make sure that people safely, without dying, navigate this? And then there's people maybe with good intentions saying we have a due date, we have a schedule system, we have to make sure the hospitals are running, therefore they need to plan certain things. And like you might have, like sometimes when you go into a hospital with the tiniest thing, and really open up to seeing that it's more centered around how can we move people through with initially a good intention, right? They really want to help. They're also somewhat, caught in the system. But if you understand that and open up to the idea of, it's not the purpose to really create the best setting for the baby to be born, but a good enough setting for both people to come out of here, and the rest will be done, outside. Like, let them deal with their trauma in their own terms. It's like, if you open up to that, you can really start making your own choices, see possibilities. So let's talk a little bit more about birth. And I shared with you, I was a C-section child. And I was thinking on my way here, like, I want to say in my childhood days, when I would say I'm C-section, that was not the majority. The majority of kids around me were still natural birth. And for me, it was like, this, it was necessary. I'm one off. But now that my friends are all going through pregnancy, and I have, like, they all choose C-section, or they are made and like pushed towards that. And I feel like now it's almost like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 for different various reasons. But I'm wondering, like, do we have by now scientific numbers that somewhat share the impact of this and that birth? And if so, because for me, in one of the first mushroom sessions that I really had an impactful moment of connecting with the womb energy, and really, as you described in the very beginning, going through birth again and again in these ceremonies. For me, it was really one of those eye-opening moments of like, I want to choose on my terms when I come out of this. In that case, it was a Temescal, so it was really a womb setting, right? Like dark room, dark space, and it was like, I'm not yet ready to go out there. Like, I just want to be here. I just want to be in the dark. And it was so deep and meaningful for me to feel this on my own terms. And it made me so sad because I knew I could not go back to this moment. And I do see it unfold in some of my day-to-day moments again and again, where I'm like, ooh, someone says you have to do this in 30 days, or someone says, ooh, you have to do this by the end of the year. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm just going to do it on my own timeline, you know, and it goes different than that. So there's always this moment where I'm like, I want to connect with the natural flow of things, and I want to allow that in, and it's almost like reclaiming of that power. And somehow it feels scary to me, this idea that all of a sudden C-section is the new normal, and are we aware of, you know, the consequences that that the person has to deal with for the rest of their life, which is not always bad. Like, let's say my birth story is so positive, the way I heard it, right? I was told over and over again, you know, like I was the happiest baby born with a big smile and, you know, big and healthy, and all the nurses just wanted to be around me because also I was the child with the curly hair in a region where hardly anyone had curls. So, you know, I had the factor of cuteness, and people really loved me and gave me all their attention. So that was what I carried into my adulthood, this story of, hey, you know, I was wanted, I was cared for. But still, I always wondered, like, what is the shadow? What is there? And I think it was also in the workshop when someone brought up the idea, how many generations will it take until women and medical system forget that there even is such a thing as natural birth? And what are we about to lose as society if nobody remembers that, if that knowledge just goes away? And you were saying, like, we see, like, why are we even talking about birth? Why does all this matter? Because we do live in a society where we have anxiety, self-esteem issues, shame, people not believing in themselves, people being so needy, seeking, getting addicted to this and that. It's like you can look around and you feel the lack of roots in society, in community, in your own being. It's like such a reclamation to get back in there. So like, why are we talking about this? Because I want more people to really make the conscious choice to change that pattern for the future, and not just go for comfort in certain moments, and not just take this production of humans as something that has become a scientific manufacturing process. Like, there is so much more to it. And we are not even aware of the consequences by the direction that we are heading. And again, going back to my math class, like, we have all learned how important it is to do A and B testing and, you know, allow for room that something is wrong that we assume is good. And I feel like if all of us now, 90% do C-section, or like a fast forward, is it even a natural birth? Like, even if it is a vaginal birth, there are so many factors influencing the timeliness of things. That we should leave room for what happens with the B group, where we just allow for things to unfold naturally. And do we have data? Is there someone interested in even collecting the data of what happens to this bigger and bigger growing spread that we have with children in the world? That was a long story, but is there some proof? Is someone collecting data?
Yeah, all wonderful. I really want to say thank you for sharing part of your history, your story, and your entrance into the world. You remind me that the beauty of this work is that it is never too late to heal. And the work of healing your own birth, at least in the way that I conduct that work, it actually is just you're opening up a doorway to begin to recognize that your birth is actually playing out every day of your life, especially when you go through change, transition, these kinds of things. And so from that moment forward, your life then becomes what reveals to you your birth memories. Your life will continue to reveal, and therefore will continue to provide you opportunity to stitch a new re-scripted story into your life. And that is amazing. That's the beautiful, beautiful part of this. Why is it important? It's important because we're talking about our creative energy, our power. Our first sexual experience was our own conception. What energy surrounded that? What energy did mom bring in and dad bring in? What was there? What wasn't there? All of that informed the magnitude of our life force that entered form. And so when we touch, home base, that's like, let's go back into the source, re-welcome ourselves into our lives. That is our power. It's our creative energy. It is, this isn't just about birthing children. This is about birthing ourselves into our lives, birthing our creations, our visions, reconnecting with what is it that inspired me. The spira is the breath, is the shapes and the movements of human beings through all our embryonic development, the way the baby comes through the birth canal, all of our biomechanics still, it's a spiral. Mm-hmm. So we can come into this gorgeous alignment or flow, like I heard you say, I think we can all come into flow with the natural timing and unfoldment of life. So that's what is here for us. And the reality is we get very fixated. If I want to do a podcast, we're just thinking about the podcast. If I see it in birth and relationships a lot, those who are wanting to conceive, we're just fixated on conception. And then when they're pregnant, we're just fixated on birth. And then, I show up to remind people that, if you're going to conceive, that means you're going to be pregnant. And that means you're going to give birth. And then that means you're going to be a parent. And also what it means is that you're going to be a grandparent one day and a great grandparent. Hopefully you'll be around for that. So we're looking at like this longer timeline that is unfolding. And I really think that's like a poignant thing for us to remember, right? Mm-hmm. Our births inform the way we live, but they also inform the way we die. We are meeting that birth portal at the end of our lives. For me, when I was getting born, the doctor who delivered me popped the sack of water. I was being born on call. Mm-hmm. I was one of the, 80,000 babies that are born on call. And it's a precious way to be born. And oftentimes the waters are prematurely ruptured to initiate labor or speed up labor. In my case, he popped the bag as I was crowning so that he wouldn't get splashed. Okay? So this is something that shows up in my life, personally and professionally, to this day, I can tell you. I'm really good at initiating projects. I can see exactly the way I can feel and instinctually navigate my life so well, but just before when I'm just about to complete something, it is then that everything in my whole being believes I need someone or something to help me with this part. I can't do it. So when I give birth, it will be important, when to have someone there, if I have anyone there, that person can say, you know what, Victoria, you are the only one who can do this. Our birth memories are, the way a woman gives birth is informed by her own birth. We as women, we re-experience our births when we give birth, whether we're aware of it or not. And typically the doctors, midwives, and birth attendants, whoever they are not aware of that energy. And all of the ways that those memories arise are typically unrecognized. Birth is transcendent in nature. So everything in birth conspires for us to transcend the old story, right? But if you are being monitored and managed and all of this, then chances are you will recreate the same thing. So this is very important, right? you can re-imprint this. A lot of people think if you're born via cesarean, then you must give birth that way. That couldn't be further from the truth. Hallelujah. But yeah, there are lots of statistics. There's a lot of scientific research being done. APA, the Association of Pre- and Perinatal Psychology and Health, is a field of scientific study that sits on about 4+ generations of scientific research on birth and pre-birth, pregnancy. All of it should be included in all med school and certainly any level of psychological training, but it is not. It cannot be compared to conventional psychology. It is its own field that is in service to the consciousness and the sentience of life. There's also a lot of research published through different avenues that talk about the lifelong implications of interventions such as cesareans. They're not hard to find. It's just, scientific research is so tailored that you have to find the right, research. A lot of people, you made a very good point about cesarean. In United States and Canada and these very developed countries where we have multi-billion-dollar thriving industries of birth, the statistics of cesarean sections are really very high. If babies were only being born via cesarean, then the rates of cesareans would probably be less than 1%, or less than half, maybe, of a percentile. In some hospitals in the U.S., in a lot of hospitals, they're over 60%, and some are at 100%. This is a very big issue. A lot of women are scheduling cesareans for the sake of convenience and also aesthetics. This is a very real thing. They aren't really, or they've been made to believe that somehow their body is not capable of birthing their child. And that is a very poor set of beliefs to bring in if you're going to be now a mother and a parent. Somehow I'm inadequate or I am broken and I don't have what it takes to do this. That's a whole thing that we could speak of. But what I would like to just focus on, for the sake of probably the time that we have and how we are in this conversation right now, is that most women are not told that a cesarean section is major abdominal surgery. That takes weeks, and I will say, from what I've seen through supporting a lot of women heal their birth experiences, it takes years to recover from. Women are not told that they will not be able to hold their baby after birth in this most critical, not just one golden hour, in those critical primal periods of the development, those moments and hours and then days and months inform your lifelong relationship with your child. You having the smells, the sweat, the tears, the eye contact, being on skin is not only necessary for the baby, for the regulation and the reinforcement of their psychoneuroimmunoendocrine development, it is likewise just as important for the mother. So her postpartum time in Ayurveda, the most ancient medical system that we have, they say the 40 days post-birth inform minimal the next 40 years of your physical, mental, emotional health. So, they're not told, that they're going to be so drugged at the time of their births that their babies are going to be overdosed. And all we have studies coming out showing what that means for addiction later in life. They're not told that they may or may not feel sexual pleasure again, because that incision is going horizontally, cutting through the lifeline. Our kundalini, our sexual energy, our life force is traveling up and down So there's all of these things that we're not told, and guaranteed if women were told this, they would reconsider. And more than that, if they were told that their natural hormones of birth were, when they're undisrupted, that this, and supported, that this results in a birth that is quite peaceful, quite pain-free, actually. The hormones that are associated with giving birth are the exact same hormones that are associated with lovemaking and orgasm. There's, way higher amounts of oxytocin produced in birth than during orgasm. It's the queen hormone. It's responsible for the orgasm. It's responsible for our felt sense of safety and connection. And that hormone, as well as the other beta endorphins that are associated when that hormone stays intact, are the highest, most powerful painkillers on the planet. So if women really knew how birth works, how to protect the physiological conditions that are needed to keep birth actually safe, and how birth physiology is actually this gorgeous symphony of hormonal, neurochemical, it's a symphony of all these physiological processes that literally coalesce for the purpose of falling in love. It is a journey of heart opening. In Taoist reflexology, they know the cervix, that's the gorgeous portal that dilates, cervical dilation, it is the portal to the heart. All the neurovascular points of the cervix correspond to the heart. So if the cervix is opening, the heart must open. She must feel safe. She must be adored and revered and believed in. And then birth happens. And all of those hormones, the same hormones that conceived the child, ideally, right? We're talking ideal. Those hormones of love, when babies are carried into their lives on that wave of just love, connection, safety, intimacy, then, that's how we birth humans who have a maximum capacity to love, right? Heart-opened human beings.
It's when I listen to you, it's one of those moments. Sometimes when I listen to you, I feel like, how come we are reading all these books on other things? Or sometimes I even feel, so I would say I am invested in some crypto, but sometimes I have moments when I really feel such an annoyance how much energy and time goes into following the financial markets, and how many men are just, deeply into crypto finances and tech and software, and have no eye for the other world. But, for me, it's sometimes I need to have one foot in this world and, make sure I understand where we go with technology and all of that. But then I really also want to have one foot in the world of ancient wisdom, and really, because once you open your heart to that wisdom, it's like, I don't need movies if I understand the magic of life, and if I open up to ever new unfolding miracles there, and it's if we would all first do that, and then on some level with, let's say, the leftover time, yes, I can do a little bit of trading and see how group psychology works. Like, why not? Okay, but that's not a life mission, I feel like there's so much more human-centered things actually in this world. And maybe last but not least, I would like to tap into shortly into the world of relationships. So what role plays the partner? I also want to bring him in here, but plays the relationship and the quality of the relationship to the birth of a child, because I believe that most of us invest more into our career skills or financial markets than into our relationship skills, where I would say conscious conception, understanding the energies, pre and what is after pre and
Peri.
pre and peri. Good that pre and peri birth. Like if we would invest more into our relationship skills, we would all see more peace on earth, more connectedness with one another. So, how does my relationship quality, be it the harmony or the trust, the belief in my partner, in my relationship, play a role in birth?
I love that question so much, and I'm so glad that we come back home to that. I will say, before answering it, I really think that the ancient wisdoms are the most scientific. I really do think that. And yeah, the beings that are coming onto the planet right now, they are our future innovators. Like, they probably are going to innovate whole new realms of science and innovation and ways of financial literacy. And
yes, we need all that.
You know, this is just, we don't even know yet. We'll bring in some really good shamans too.
And then it all becomes one again, right?
Yeah.
And yes.
Totally. And I really feel like the beings that are coming in, their brain hemispheres are a lot more balanced. It's not like, we have the scientists here and the artists here, but this capacity for all of it. Relationships. Well, in my birth preparation series, which I've been delivering for the past 5-6 years, has been tremendously successful, which now has me actually trying to pivot very quickly to help get it into the lives of more people. I wasn't expecting it to be that successful, but now I know why it's so successful. It's because we focus on these dimensions of prenatal care that oddly aren't being talked about. One is, healing our own births, becoming aware of our own imprints, and in order to birth a new story. The second is focusing awareness. We extend so much support in this program to the love and the relationship dynamics, and support for the fathers, extensive support for the fathers. And those three things, I have to say, they must be the three dimensions that inform birth outcomes, hands down, most radically. We get very caught in trying to learn and get educated through birth preparation, education, and all these things. That is largely taking us outside of the space from where birth emerges. So, this conscious birthing paradigm is largely a reiteration of the medical paradigm, actually. It doesn't matter how much you know about birth. It just doesn't. Just like it doesn't matter how much you know about sex. In fact, your thinking brain gets in the way of these processes. Our thinking brain gets in the way of lovemaking. If we're thinking about all these things, if we have strangers walking in and out of the room while we're making love, things come to a halt. It's the trance-like connection and state that you're in that non-ordinary experience of lovemaking gets interrupted. Well, it is no different with birth. In fact, it is just even more so the case. So education is awesome when you get real birth education and you really learn how birth works, which, lo and behold, seems to not be being taught in med school. It's very exciting, and it gives people a lot of confidence in the whole process. But that, I believe, should come secondary. First, we need to remember the indigenous wisdom of birth that lives in all 100 trillion of our cells, and we do that by healing our own births. We find a practitioner like myself who's very skilled in that realm of healing. And then, of course, we focus on the relationship. And this should be a no-brainer, right? These two human beings need to transform from ordinary humans now into parents, or maybe from parents of one to parents of 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. But I believe that I believe, in all of the most advanced sciences show this, that the child's sense of safety, their sense of whether or not they are loved, supported, and belong in their family, their community, and therefore their world, is informed by the happiness of the parents. This is a biological reality. And so we can all pause right now, whether you have parents who are together, who stayed together, whether you're like me and one parent died at a very young age, and so I didn't have an experience of seeing my mom and dad together all the time. Still, when I close my eyes, I can instantly connect to the feeling of how it would have felt to see my parents being on the same page, loving each other. That could be as simple as mom and dad are at the sink and mom puts her hand on dad and they laugh and they, yeah, you do this and I'll do that. Yeah, great. We're on the same page. In that moment, the child, no matter how old, 2 months old, 2 years old, 12 years old, 16 years old, that child is not even questioning whether or not they're safe, whether or not they're loved. It's just like everything's good. So, well, if we look around the world, we can see that relationships seem to be the thing that we are all struggling with the most.
Yeah.
Right? And we are trying to tackle them through this conventional lens of marriage and family therapy, which is, again, largely another iteration of this Western pathological model where we're going in to look at what's wrong, who's right, who's wrong.
Operate on the surface.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And so I think this is a really strong thread that connects you and Stuart Sovatsky and I very, very strongly, as we're really interested in focusing on people's strengths and admiring the power and the beauty that is this, And that's what I do a lot with humans who are making the choice consciously to be the greatest heroes of the whole world, to become parents. Yeah, they deserve a lot of acknowledgement and respect and reverence. And they're not getting that. If we really remembered what it is to bring life into the world, I think we would be bowing at every parent that we ever encounter. Of course, the one of the biggest ways to influence birth outcomes is to bring support to the couple to strengthen that relationship. Yes, pregnancy and birth is imprinting your baby lifelong, but it's also important to understand that it's imprinting you and the family system lifelong. So birth intelligently coalesces in this magical way that ensures that we birth a family that is resilient, connected, deeply in love, and able to navigate any and all change and challenge with exceptional togetherness and confidence, trust, ease. That has to happen. So a large part of the people that I work with are very conscious individuals who prepared to have a natural, peaceful home birth, and it became unexpectedly medicalized. And they ended up enduring all the traumas of surgical or medicalized birth. And when we really listen to those stories, we become aware of what really happened. And it's not what the doctor said. It is never what the doctor said. The pelvis wasn't too small. There was no failure to progress. There is no such thing in birth. There's only intelligence in birth. But what we do, if you're really listening and you're attuned to the unseen factors that inform birth physiology, we could say inform cervical dilation, same factors as during lovemaking, then we can start to see that, there was something unresolved in the relationship. And that was coming up, being amplified in birth. Might be something super subtle. But either way, the intelligence of birth is to birth a family. And that little nugget may be just a critical thing for these two to overcome in order to be the parents that they need to be for this family. So it's all intelligent.
Now, well, we have to come to an end, but I have to ask that question in this moment. Maybe you can make it very short. But so if I am prepared for home birth and then I notice something, pelvic is not doctor diagnosed this and that, and I know, okay, this could be because of a relationship issue. Like maybe I have you by my side and you have figured out. Very often it has to do with like an unsaid apology, whatever, like something, right? Can we still do that in the here and now and see the magic unfold?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, the original unlicensed midwives, original real midwives, they knew those kinds of things.
And they would bring the partner closer and it would be like, hey, like, what could there be? Like,
they knew to not even speak about any kind of problem that they saw, even if it was like shoulder dystocia, that is could be life-threatening. They would never speak about these things. They knew how to amplify the oxytocin in the room. They knew how to facilitate, to dispel the fear and the tension that keeps baby's shoulders up like this, let birth then happen.
A whole new level of orchestrating.
Totally, they're skilled.
The melody of birth.
We need real skills in the realm of birth. Yeah. We need to stop talking when we're witnessing birth, and we need to witness. For anyone listening to this conversation, if you're a woman and you're going to birth a baby, at least if you're going to have someone with you, consider having someone with you who has taken the time to really get to know you deeply, so that not if, but when your things come up in birth, they can encourage you through them. And not be like creating this scenario whereby you're then being rescued and delivered from your own victory. You know this. You're a marathoner.
Oh,
you wouldn't have the same victory at the end had a car drives up and says, "Here, I'll take you."
And I just see a new use of the relationship manual and blueprint that an individual creates in my coaching. It's like, give that to your midwife and let her know a little bit of like where to look at from a birth point of view, so to say. Yeah. But Victoria, thank you so much. This is a conversation that can go on and on and on, because we are talking about birth, which is ever unfolding. And I would like to give you the stage also to share, if people want to connect with you, how can they connect with you? How can people work with you?
Yeah, well, the easiest way is by visiting www.luminousbirth.earth, or maybe the first easiest way is through Instagram, where everybody is, and it's at Luminous Birth.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You have built success in every other area of your life, but if love still feels like the missing piece, it's time to change that. Love 10X is for high achievers who are ready to create a relationship that matches their ambition, depth, and vision for life. Love 10X gives you the tools, mindset shifts, and strategies to attract and build a relationship that actually works without losing yourself in the process. If that resonates, check the show notes and join Love 10X today. Your future partner is out there. Let's make sure you're ready for them.